Hey everyone. A couple of years ago, I published the first in a series called Jinn Hunter. And the first book in the series was called The Prism. Maybe you've read it. The second one is now being published. And it's called The Jinnslayer. I'm planning, rather ambitiously, something like 9 books in this series. And I finished writing the first 3. I've loved writing it, maybe more than anything else I've ever written. And that's because it has led me kind of through a keyhole into a magical realm, a twilight zone, in which I can let my imagination run wild. What I've loved most of all is to be able to fantasize and create and not be held accountable in any way for keeping to the facts and figures that I find so boring in my life. I just want to read just a couple of pages from near the front of the Jinnslayer. I think what you need to know is Borbor is a yellow lemon gin, and he's a good gin. In fact, he's adorable, and he's kind of even a nicer version of Chewbacca, but kind of blonde and shaggy and huge. For 3 horizons, Amar, the Admiral, spoke of his life, but never once did he mention the sea. Plodding alongside his travelling companion, listening intently to the stream of tales, Borbor pined for solitude. Far too well-mannered to regale the Admiral with the story of his own from the caravanserai of Mishmak, he listened, and he listened, wishing he was alone. The great crushed glass desert eventually came to an end, replaced by a wide dominion called Zox, where the days and nights were no more than 10 minutes long. The landscape was abundantly fertile, and the people who farmed it were overly kind. Inviting travellers into their homes, they plied them with food and friendship in equal measure. Meals tended to run on into each other in Zox, in a long and constant stream of dining. Breakfast became dinner, dinner became breakfast, and both were a reason to tell portions of a grand tapestry, the epic tale of the 3 clouds. It was all that mattered to the people of Zox. A tale so important that it was studied as though it were a religious scripture cherished by every man, woman, and child. A tale so long and so intertwined that there was never any chance at all for anyone ever entertaining a guest with the same passage twice. As it was such an epic, it took an entire lifetime to commit the full tale to memory. Having fought off invitations for a great many Zox days and nights so that they could make progress with their march, Borbor and the Admiral finally gave in. At a little village on the margin of the velvet forest, they were welcomed by a blacksmith. No sooner had they entered the frail, windowless home than the blacksmith's wife had cooked up breakfast and dinner. As a plate of food was served to each of the guests, the blacksmith wiped his face with a rag and began to tell a little of the tale. Unlike other stories told from beginning to end, the tale of the 3 clouds was so comprehensive that tellers tended to dive in anywhere at random. The story was said to have no beginning and no end. Rather like life itself, a knowledge of it was gained through portions laid down layer upon layer through interwoven twists and turns. The blacksmith had selected a passage from the 609th book. The hero, a warrior named Span, was hunting a dragon queen. Travelling alone in disguise, his army had been turned into glass trees by a sorceress. As Span climbed the cliff face to the lair of the dragon queen, the blacksmith declared, his eyes burning like coals glowing in the forge. Then, all of a sudden, the blacksmith's wife let out a piercing screech. Her husband looked up fast, the next line of the tale trapped in his mouth. "What is it, dearest?" "Look," the woman cried, her eyes welling with tears, her finger pointing at the man in the naval uniform. Borbor and the blacksmith looked round. Propped up against the far wall of the room, Ammar, the admiral, was asleep. As a traveller passing through the dominion of Zox, he had been unaware that there was no sacrilege so terrible or any blasphemy so cursed than to fall asleep during the tale of the three clouds. Never in the entire history of Zox had anyone succumbed to sleep when the tale was being told. Despite bone-aching boredom, everyone knew to stay awake during the long and uncomfortable recitals. Not to do so would be to ridicule the tale and therefore to mock the entire culture of Zox. The blacksmith leapt to his feet, his huge muscular hands lurching towards the admiral's throat. Within the blink of an eye, the naval officer's face had turned plum red as the blacksmith choked his guest, and as his wife screamed, Borbor did his best to plead for their lives.